Yeah, this passage that he read for us this morning, there's two things going on, at least two things, with these two seemingly wildly divergent stories. So first, Jesus seems to be sternly and strongly condemning divorce in what amounts to an argument with the Pharisees. And then the next thing you know, we're transported to this park-like setting filled with children and Jesus and happiness and laughter and tender, loving concern. Pretty much the opposite of these arguments and breakups and everything that was going on. So what's the common thread? Or is Mark just kind of randomly spinning tales from what Peter remembers of his time with Jesus? This is maybe where Peter paced past the table one too many times, and Mark's notes all flew off the table and scattered everywhere from the motion of it, and he didn't quite get that back in order properly. A couple of pages got mixed up. I mean, I know that can happen. I think that happened to me last week during the sermon, and I didn't even have paper, so it can happen. But maybe that happened. Or maybe, just maybe, Mark is intentionally juxtaposing the severity of the first story with the tenderness of the second one. Okay, let's be real. Divorce is never good. And here's why. When it happens, something has gone wrong. Terribly wrong. Even when divorce is clearly justified, and on at least two occasions elsewhere in the Gospels, Jesus explicitly states that divorce sometimes is justified. And other New Testament writings concur with Jesus. So even when it is justified, it's only justified because something went wrong. Terribly wrong on the part of one, or on the part of the other, or on both parties in a marriage. So divorce can be rightly justified. Divorce can be the right thing to do. You realize no matter what I say this morning, I'm going to get myself in a lot of trouble. But the thing that should be done, sometimes even the thing that must be done. But that doesn't make it good. It's not a happy occasion. And no one, so far as I know, throws a divorce party, or invites you to their divorce ceremony, or caters a great meal for the divorce reception.
We threw a party for my sister.
All right, well, that's the first time for everything. How did this not come up? I don't know.
I had one too.
Fine, okay, so it happens. Roll that out the window.
It's just really.
I'll just sit down. All right. So far as I knew. Normally what we celebrate and enjoy and awe and wonder, and more often than not with at least some kind of pomp and ceremony, even if it's a very private one, marriage often becomes something we cry over and mourn over and question ourselves and others over in cold courtrooms and even colder bedrooms. Divorce isn't pretty. It isn't fun. It is sometimes justified, occasionally necessary. It may result in a healthier and better life for one or even both parties, but never, ever is it in any way what we could reasonably call good. And why? Maybe the party's good, but it's not. It isn't a question of, is it sin or not? It's missing the point entirely if we try to put divorce in a list of sins or a category of sins, or we try to determine where it falls on some kind of scale of bad things that one might do. No, we can say with confidence that divorce is never good because it always comes from torn apart relationships. This is the thing that makes divorce so awful. Broken relationships. And that's not about one party or the other or whatever did or didn't happen. It's a broken relationship. That's tough. And divorce, it does tear people apart. It does break apart relationships, but let's face it, the tearing apart of the people divorcing is almost always, it started a long time before things ever come to a head in divorce. And of course, there is damage to so many other relationships in the process too. So as we wonder about what makes Jesus or Mark or Peter connect or turn in this passage with such utter brokenness to the genuine authenticity and simplicity of a child, we might ask ourselves, who suffers more from a divorce than a child? If there are children, are not they damaged and scarred as much or more than the parents. And I don't think we would say that to somehow condemn the parents who are divorcing and to judge whether or not one or both parties were justified in divorcing, but just to realize, to acknowledge the reality of the situation. Kids get hurt by this, really hurt. And that's true no matter how old of a kid they may be. So Jesus tells us that this isn't good because it hurts people. And because it hurts the most vulnerable among us, the least of these, children or otherwise, the very most of all. But, did you think this passage was just about divorce? Let's think a little deeper. Let's take this one step, one. I always have one, not three, one. You'll see me do it all the time, believe me. I'll go like this and say one, I'll go like this and say seven. It means whatever it meant. One. How do we interact with and relate with people in the world, with each other, and with God? Do we divorce ourselves from the world? So separated from the people around us that we can't possibly share the love of Christ with them? Do we live in infidelity to one another? So concerned that our own wants and needs and desires, however real, authentic, and legitimate those may well be, that we are no longer able to love and serve one another from our hearts? Do we adulterate ourselves with God, so infatuated with our idols, whatever those things may be, that take the place of and become priorities over our relationship with Jesus? And we no longer have any real sense of God's presence with us and around us? Why? Why do we hurt each other? Getting deep in here, isn't it? You know, when I was crafting this sermon, I had to look up that word I just used, adulterate, just to make sure it was really a word and I wasn't misremembering it. You know what adulterate means? Not adultery, but adulterate. You know what that means? Look this up and it says to render something poorer in quality by adding another substance, typically an inferior one. Why do we hurt each other? Is it time for that fun part of the story where Jesus is playing in the park, spinning around and merry-go-round with all the kids yet? Sure, why not? So the disciples speak sternly, either to the children or to the adults, bringing them to Jesus or both. Hey, the teacher's busy! People, you know, he's teaching and stuff. Get these kids out of here! Well, Jesus doesn't exactly get mad at the disciples here. The word we find in our translation is indignant. Basically, he's really irritated with them. He's kind of looking at them like, really? Really? This is the only place Mark uses this term for one of Jesus' emotions. He's irritated at their failure to learn and at their attitude in itself. In the passage we talked about last week, just a few verses earlier, they've been found hindering someone whom Jesus approved. And here again we see the very same thing. They're obstructionists who stand in the way of the generous intentions of Jesus. Ouch. That's not who I want to be. An obstructionist standing in the way of the generous intentions of Jesus. Standing in the way of children? Standing in the way of healed, healthy, whole, and holy relationships? I don't want to be that person. It's not good. Instead, I want to be like John the Baptist and prepare the way for God's kingdom, to prepare the way for the King. But it costs us to do that. It costs us to be those kind of people. It cost John his very life. The cost of the kingdom is great, even and especially in the area of the closest of human relationships. Moses allowed divorce. I'll get back to that. We're coming. Because of human hardness of heart, a failure to understand God's purpose in marriage, two hearts, two lives functioning as one. But Jesus made it plain that the ideal of the kingdom of God, when hearts have not been hardened, when two hearts and lives are functioning as one in fidelity to one another, is lifelong faithfulness to one partner. This is so costly that according to Matthew, the disciples themselves said it would be better to remain unmarried than to face it. This isn't easy. And sometimes it all goes wrong. When we hurt each other deeply, we wound each other. Sometimes beyond relational repair. And that's so tragic. The kingdom will cost us everything. And more than we ever could have imagined. And yet the kingdom will give us so much more than we ever could have asked for, hoped for, or imagined. It's a tough passage because of the two things laid alongside of each other. Pastor Philip, talking about divorce this morning. I'm talking about little buildings, kids being welcome. What are we talking about? We're talking about love. We're talking about love. And we're talking about embracing each other, understanding that sometimes it all is wrong, but realizing that it's all of us that are affected by broken relationships together, all of us. And we celebrate World Communion Sunday. We celebrate being one. We celebrate the children. In a few moments, we'll partake of that one loaf and one cup in solidarity with and fidelity to one another in this local church family. In faithfulness to Jesus' command, with arms stretched out in love, to welcome all who would join together with us in seeking after Christ, following the way of Jesus. May we do so that we might heal each other rather than hurt each other, in solidarity with the most broken, most suffering, the most vulnerable among us. Very often it's children. I don't know about you, but I'm just kind of a big kid anyway. So I get it. I think we all can feel that too. Do we not all need to approach each other and God with the purity of the heart of a child? Somebody said that to me this week. I think the answer is yes, we do. May it be so in each of us. Amen.